This story shows us the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Jamal's courage in the face of prejudice, supported by his father's unwavering belief in respect and justice, teaches us all the value of standing tall for our dignity and the dignity of others. It reminds us that respect is a two-way street. We all deserve it, and it's up to each of us to give it as well. But perhaps most importantly, this story highlights the power of forgiveness. While it's never easy, forgiving those who wrong us can open the door to growth, understanding, and positive change. So, think about how you can make a difference in your community. What small action can you take today to help foster kindness and respect? If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos that inspire change. And be sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next powerful story. Thank you for watching, and remember, every positive step counts. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Have you ever faced prejudice or stood up for what's right? Your story might inspire others. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, even the smallest act of kindness or courage can make a big difference. Let's keep spreading respect and understanding, one step at a time. Stay strong, stay kind, and we'll see you in the next video. The next day, Mayor Marcus Reynolds walked into the city council meeting with a sense of purpose. He had always prided himself on being a fair and just leader, but today, he was about to take a stand for something much bigger than politics. As he stood before the council members, the weight of the room fell on him. Jamal's experience had shaken him to the core, and he knew this was a defining moment not just for his son, but for the entire community. Yesterday, he began, his voice steady but filled with resolve. My son Jamal faced an incident of discrimination at Miller Park. He was harassed by a woman who wrongly targeted him simply because of the color of his skin. This isn't just about Jamal. This is about every child, every family, every person in our community who has ever been made to feel unwelcome or inferior because of their background. The room was silent as the council members absorbed his words. There was a heaviness in the air, but also a palpable sense of urgency. Marcus continued, "It's time we take action. I propose we start the Fairview Respect and Inclusion Project, a community initiative that will focus on combating discrimination, teaching respect, and ensuring that everyone, regardless of race, gender, or background, knows they belong here in Fairview." The council members exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement. The room began to shift, and soon a quiet murmur of support spread among them. One by one, the members voiced their approval. "This is something we need," one councilwoman said. "It's long overdue." Another councilman added, "This project will set the tone for the future of our city." Without hesitation, the council voted, and the project was approved unanimously. As the meeting came to an end, Marcus felt a sense of relief wash over him. This wasn't just a victory for Jamal. It was a victory for everyone who had faced prejudice, for anyone who had been told they didn't belong. When he shared the news with Jamal later that day, he could see the pride in his son's eyes. "You did this, son," Marcus said, placing a hand on Jamal's shoulder. "You showed courage, and because of you, we're going to make a real difference in this city." Jamal felt a swell of pride in his chest. He hadn't expected that one painful moment in the park would lead to something so powerful. But now, as he thought about the changes ahead, he knew his experience had sparked a wave of positive change. Not just for him, but for everyone in Fairview. His heart lifted with hope for the future, knowing that sometimes even the smallest actions could lead to the biggest transformations. A week later, Jamal and his father returned to Miller Park, the place where everything had started. As they walked through the park, Jamal felt a sense of peace. The new banners promoting the Fairview Respect and Inclusion Project were displayed proudly at the entrance, a tangible reminder of the change sparked by his experience. But as they passed a bench, Jamal noticed the woman from the previous week sitting alone, her head down in a quiet moment of reflection. She looked up, and her eyes met Jamal's. Without hesitation, she stood and walked over to them, her steps slow and deliberate. "Mr. Reynolds, Jamal," she began, her voice softer than before. "I owe you both an apology. Last week, I acted out of prejudice, and I'm deeply sorry for how I treated you." Jamal was taken aback, but could see the sincerity in her eyes. After a pause, he responded, his voice calm and measured. "It's okay, but I just want to be treated like everyone else. No different, no less." Mayor Reynolds nodded, placing a hand on Jamal's shoulder as he spoke with quiet authority. "Thank you for your apology," he said to the woman. "We all make mistakes, but it's how we learn and grow that truly matters." With that, they continued their walk through the park, the woman's apology marking a moment of healing. Jamal felt a sense of lightness in his heart, knowing that even in the face of wrong, forgiveness could lead to understanding and change. Whispers of disapproval spread through the onlookers, many of whom now exchanged glances, recognizing the mayor's presence and realizing who Jamal was. As the woman stood there, her face tightening, the crowd's disapproval of her behavior became increasingly evident. It was clear that the support she had hoped to gain was slipping away. Marcus, unwavering in his stance, glanced around at the people who were starting to side with him and Jamal. He turned back to the woman, his voice steady and final. "I think it's time you and your children find another bench." The woman, now realizing she had lost control of the situation, grabbed her children and stormed off, leaving the park in silence. The crowd began to disperse, with some offering quiet nods of respect to Marcus, acknowledging his calm yet firm leadership in the face of unfairness. Officer Reed, who had been watching the entire exchange, gave Jamal a friendly smile as he walked past, signaling that everything was going to be okay. As father and son walked away from the scene, the weight of the moment seemed to lift, knowing that justice had been served, not with anger or violence, but with quiet strength and a commitment to what was right. As they drove home in the quiet of the car, Jamal sat in the passenger seat, his gaze fixed out the window, the events of the day replaying in his mind. He couldn't fully understand why the woman had treated him that way, why she'd singled him out just because of the color of his skin. The silence in the car was heavy with Jamal's thoughts, and his father, Marcus, could see the weight of the moment on his son's face. After a few moments, Marcus spoke softly, breaking the silence. "Son, I know that was hard to understand. I know it hurt, but I want you to understand something important." He paused, glancing over at Jamal, his tone gentle but firm. "What happened wasn't your fault. Some people carry hatred or fear within themselves, and instead of dealing with it, they take it out on others. You didn't deserve that." Jamal looked up at his father, his heart heavy with the confusion he still felt. "But why did she have to see my color, Dad? Why couldn't she just see me as a kid?" Marcus took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "People like her, Jamal. They make assumptions about others based on how they look or where they come from. It's called prejudice. It's wrong, and it's something you'll face in life, no matter how much you try to be kind or respectful. But here's the thing. None of that changes who you are. You are worthy of respect, no matter what." Jamal nodded slowly, taking in his father's words, but there was still a sadness in his eyes. Marcus continued, "I know this world isn't always fair, son. It's not right that people judge others based on their appearance, but it's something we have to confront. And you have the strength to stand up for what's right. You've shown that today." Marcus's voice took on a deeper, more determined tone. "I won't let this go, Jamal. I can't. It's not just about you. It's about everyone in this city who's ever faced prejudice, who's ever been made to feel less than they are. We need to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. That's why tomorrow, I'm taking action. I'm going to work with the City Council to start a new initiative, a community program to teach respect, to fight against discrimination, and to make sure that everyone in Fairview feels like they belong. Jamal looked over at his father, the admiration in his eyes growing. You're going to do something about it, Dad? Yes, Marcus said with a quiet determination. I'm going to make sure we do. For you. For all the kids who come after you. We can't let one person's prejudice define the future of this city. Jamal sat back in his seat, feeling a sense of hope for the first time since the incident. His father wasn't just a leader in name, but a leader in action, and together, they were going to make a difference. Did she say anything hurtful, son? He asked gently. Jamal bit his lip, glancing at the woman before whispering, She told me to leave because of my color. Hearing his son's words, Marcus felt a surge of anger rise inside him, but he kept his face calm for Jamal's sake. Standing up, he turned back to the woman. Officer, is there any reason my son should leave? He asked firmly. Officer Reed, now understanding the situation completely, shook his head. No, Mayor Reynolds. Jamal hasn't done anything wrong. The crowd around them, now fully aware of the situation, began to murmur. The woman's anger faded as she realized the onlookers were no longer on her side. Her expression soured, but she said nothing more. Marcus, holding his ground, gave her one last look and said, I think it's time you and your children find another bench. Without another word, the woman grabbed her children by their hands and stormed off. The crowd dispersed, some offering nods of respect to Marcus, while Officer Reed gave Jamal a friendly smile as he returned to his duties. Jamal, still feeling shaken, looked up at his father. Let's go home, son, Marcus said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. And don't ever let anyone make you feel less than you are, all right? Jamal nodded, his heart lifted by his father's support, as they walked away from the park together. As the tension in the park continued to rise, Mayor Marcus Reynolds, Jamal's father, appeared in the distance. He quickly spotted Jamal surrounded by the woman, with Officer Reed standing nearby. His heart sank as he noticed the crowd of onlookers starting to gather, whispering and exchanging glances. Without hesitation, he walked briskly toward the scene, his face growing serious with concern. The moment Jamal saw his father, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. Jamal, what's going on here? Mayor Reynolds asked, his voice calm but laced with concern. He placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder, but before Jamal could respond, the woman's sharp voice cut through the air. Are you this boy's father? She demanded, glaring at Marcus with a mix of anger and defiance. Yes, I am, Marcus replied steadily, keeping his voice measured. He turned his attention to the woman, his tone firm but controlled. I'd like to know why my son is being accused, he said, his eyes scanning the scene, taking in the empty benches scattered around the park. The woman hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the mayor's calm demeanor and unwavering support for his son. She stammered, trying to justify her actions. Your son refused to move when I asked him to. My children and I needed the bench. Marcus didn't back down. He looked around at the open space in the park and then back at her. There are plenty of benches here. Why did you need my son to move? His words were measured, but they carried the weight of a father defending his child, and his voice made it clear that he wasn't going to let this slide. The woman's defensive attitude faltered, but she still muttered, I shouldn't have to explain myself. The crowd, which had been quietly observing the scene, began to shift uncomfortably. They could see the injustice of the situation. A child being harassed for no reason other than his skin color. One afternoon, as Jamal sat alone on a park bench, enjoying the peaceful moment before his father arrived, something unexpected happened. A woman with a stern look on her face approached him, her footsteps sharp against the ground. She stopped in front of him, blocking his view of the park, and demanded, "Excuse me, boy. I need you to get up. My children and I want this bench." Jamal, taken aback by her abrupt tone, glanced around, noticing the many other empty benches scattered around the park. Trying to be polite, he said, "There are plenty of other seats. You and your kids can sit anywhere else." But the woman didn't appreciate his response. Her face twisted into a frown, her patience growing thin. "Don't talk back to me, young man," she snapped, her voice rising. "You need to respect your elders." Jamal was confused. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just sitting there, minding his own business. Why was she being so rude? Before he could say anything else, the woman pulled out her phone, and within minutes, a police officer arrived. She pointed toward Jamal, her voice loud and accusing. "Officer, this boy refuses to move for my family. He's being disrespectful." Officer Reed, who had seen Jamal around the park many times before, recognized him immediately. He knew Jamal well, the mayor's son, always polite and respectful. Officer Reed approached calmly, giving Jamal a reassuring nod. "Jamal, is everything okay here?" he asked gently. Jamal, now feeling nervous and unsure of what was happening, nodded, his voice shaking slightly. "I didn't do anything wrong, officer. She just asked me to move, but there are empty benches around." But the woman wasn't done. "You don't understand, officer," she interrupted sharply. "He was rude. Children need to learn to respect adults." Officer Reed glanced between them, trying to make sense of the situation. He knew Jamal and could see that the boy wasn't causing any trouble. As the tension grew, whispers began to spread through the crowd of parkgoers who were starting to gather around, wondering why this woman was making such a scene over a simple request. Then the situation took a different turn. Jamal's father, Mayor Marcus Reynolds, appeared in the distance. He noticed the gathering crowd and the familiar figure of Officer Reed standing close by. His concern grew as he saw Jamal surrounded by the woman and several onlookers. Without hesitation, he walked over, his face serious, his concern for his son evident. "Jamal, what's going on here?" he asked, placing a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. The woman, still furious, turned her glare toward the mayor. "Are you this boy's father?" she demanded, her voice still laced with anger. "Yes, I am," Marcus replied calmly. His voice was steady, but there was a firmness in his tone. "I'd like to know why my son is being accused." The woman hesitated, her expression faltering, but she still tried to justify her actions. "Your son refused to move when I asked him to. My children and I needed the bench." Marcus looked around, noticing the empty benches nearby. His eyes flicked to Officer Reed, who subtly shook his head, signaling that there was no cause for concern. Yet it was clear to Marcus that this wasn't just about a bench. Jamal was upset, and that alone made him stand even firmer. He turned back to the woman and with a calm yet unwavering voice said, "My son is respectful, but he also deserves respect in return. There are plenty of benches here. Why did you need him to move?" The woman hesitated again, clearly uncomfortable under Marcus's scrutiny. Finally, she muttered, "I shouldn't have to explain myself." Marcus knelt down to Jamal's level, his voice soft and full of understanding. "Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a powerful story about standing up against prejudice and the importance of respect and forgiveness. It's a story that speaks to the heart, showing how one simple act of courage can spark real change. Meet Jamal, a young boy who, after school, spends time at Miller Park waiting for his father. Jamal's father, Marcus Reynolds, is the mayor of Fairview, a small but busy city, and he's done his best to raise Jamal with kindness, respect, and strength. But one day, while Jamal is just sitting on a bench, a woman with a stern attitude demands he move. Not because he's done anything wrong, but because of his skin color. Little does she know, this encounter will change everything, not just for Jamal, but for the whole community. Miller Park was a special place for Jamal, a quiet corner of Fairview where he would go after school to wait for his dad. It wasn't just any park. It was a place where Jamal could be a kid, free from the pressures of school, surrounded by swings, slides, and open fields. Every afternoon, he'd kick his soccer ball around, play on the swings, or simply watch the sunset as he waited for his father, Marcus Reynolds, to pick him up. Jamal's relationship with his dad was something truly special. Since his mother passed away when Jamal was just 5, it had always been just the two of them. Marcus had taken on the role of both father and mother, juggling the demands of being the mayor of Fairview while making sure Jamal never felt alone. Despite his busy schedule, every evening after work, Marcus made it a priority to spend quality time with Jamal. Whether it was talking about his day during their drive home or just sharing a quiet moment together, Marcus was more than just a mayor. He was a rock for Jamal, offering him love, guidance, and the reassurance that no matter what happened in the world, he'd always have his father by his side.